Hello, and welcome back to the Wizard's Respite Sanctorum, show that dives into all things TTRPG. Today we're going to be talking about something that's been a little bit more recent in the TTRPG sort of blog sphere. That's the concept of evil, whether or not you should have it at your table, when and how is it employed. We're going to be discussing it, giving our back and forth on it and giving a breakdown of what's been kind of going on in the community. Before we jump into that, however, I am never alone on these things. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Zach. Zachariah, how are you doing?
Hi, everybody. Nice to be back. Sorry, everybody. We had a lot of life changes over the Christmas and holiday season for both of us, and we are both trying to manage. So hopefully, we're back to our bi-weekly schedule. I'm not gonna promise anything yet, but yeah, my content has been just devoid of anything. So just this is here so you can know that I am still intending on doing what I can. But this is exciting that we're back.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be back. Doing these episodes isn't just something that we want to do; it's something that we love to do. I love doing this.
Yeah,
Um,
same here.
these things like talking shop about RPGs is not something you get to do
Mm-mm.
around the water cooler at on your day job.
No.
Like coming
Yeah.
bi-weekly and being able to shoot the shit with you
Yeah.
on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It
I,
kind of makes the week almost,
I have very much missed you, my friend. And just so that everybody else out there knows, it's not that we haven't done Sanctorum. We really haven't talked in like that amount of time either because it's just been too busy other than like texts of like, hey, can we do this then? No, we can't do this then or whatever.
Yeah.
Just because
It's
just so
still
that
alive.
yeah, it's been crazy. Like the holidays were nuts, and I completely switched my jobs, and I am in a job that is kind of insane right now, and it's gonna get better as it goes along. But right now, I just started it, so going back to work after 8 years plus. This job lends itself to a certain level of craziness that I was not expecting, um, but I guess should have been expecting. So it's been a hard adjustment. It sucks because I told everybody, I'm like, yeah, we're definitely going to cut back on the content, but I'm not going to stop doing content altogether. And then I stopped doing content altogether. There's been no content on my channel for like 3 weeks. So it's nice to be back in the swing of things at least a little bit for what I can.
Yeah, and yeah, I like you said. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it all right there. Like I've also been like grinding on the Wizards Respite website.
Mm-hmm.
Like my gears have been rusty due to frost of like the
Yeah.
winter coming in, and it's just
Oh
been
yeah.
it's been everything. And I'm so glad to be back here and chatting with you, Zach. But
Same here. Same here.
let's see. Are you ready to jump into
Let's
this?
do it. Let's talk about the topic. Let's do it.
Okay, so to give people a little bit of background on where this is coming from, the whole internet RPG community had a little bit of a pop off on the concept of evil recently.
So
It was
silly.
it and just again these controversial issues that hit the community really hard. Zach and I have not talked about it at all
Yep.
before this show.
Keeping with our zero preparation mission statement.
So we're gonna find out. Maybe we have the same opinions. Maybe we don't. We're gonna find out. But one thing that I want to like just throw out there, if nothing else, even if we don't have the same opinion on this, this is two grown men talking about a game in a civil
Yeah,
manner,
that's all
and
chill.
I beg the community,
Oh,
please do as much.
oh, please.
Um,
A TTRPG community. You guys are starting to get to a point where you're starting to look like video gamers. Don't. Just relax a little bit. Just remember this is all a game and it is not worth the fight that you guys are fighting. Like, this isn't the stance or the hill that you gotta die on. Like, again, this is a game. We play in our basement with friends. It doesn't matter how you play. And we're going to talk about our beliefs on the subject. But if you want there to be evil in your game, just pure evil that exists in any form that you want it to exist, as long as your players are okay with that, go for it, man. Like, that's the point of role-playing games, is you get to control your entire universe. I feel like we haven't talked about anything in like 3 weeks, and I suddenly feel like a broken record right off the bat. But like, I feel like we did this with the species topic, and we did it with one other topic, and I just want to reiterate, the best thing about tabletop role-playing games is it is a completely controlled environment for you and a few of your friends. Unless you're doing it online in front of an audience, it's even more controlled than video games, because nobody else gets input into it. It's you. You can change the system any way you want. You can change the words any way you want. You can change the rules any way you want. The world is yours to control. That's what's awesome about it. It's the perfect escape. So like, at the end of the day, no matter what we say, just do what feels right and stop arguing about it online. It's just doesn't need to be there.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I kind of figured that was going to be your rundown.
Now that I've said that, let's be hypocritical and argue about it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is why you're wrong. No.
Yeah. GMs, hypocrites for life, baby, for life.
Right. So okay, some of this like got thrown out. There was a new book that dropped, third party for Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
It's called, I'll just go ahead and name it out. I'm not trying to hate on this guy whatsoever, or on this company, or these individuals. I don't necessarily agree with every single stance that they have,
of course,
but they're free to have their opinions.
Right.
The Lazy DM, very big name in the Dungeons and Dragons space, produced a book, Forge of Foes. Within the book, they discussed moving away from evil creatures, or having creatures with the evil alignment, such as goblins and orcs, because if like its association with prejudice and capitalism, or colonization.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I understand what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't want any like associations of a race being evil, especially D&D 5th edition was still using race as the moniker.
Right.
And I guess there was just a few too many light switches getting flicked in the room, saying like this might be a red flag for them, and so they had a big spiel about don't use evil to describe an entire race. These are other ways you can describe a race or a villain or villainous actions.
Right.
They did have a few comments in there that was sort of in jest, which is in line with their text. That is very much how they talk. They joke a lot. It's very flippant in a lot of their. And I think there was one comment in particular about goblins being associated in one degree or another to men's rights activists. That definitely like that's
gonna start some stuff. It does sound like, and again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. It definitely sounds like they're trying to start some shit in some ways, even if they're right or wrong. Just why are we poking fun? Like, why poke the bee's nest? Walk around the bee's nest. You know what I mean? That's always my thought process. Like, there's a bee's nest. I'm just gonna avoid the bee's nest. I'm not gonna poke it for no apparent reason whatsoever. Even if the bees shouldn't be there. Just gonna move around. Like, I'm not saying the bee's nest is right or wrong. I'm saying I don't want to hit it with a stick. Why are you hitting it with a stick? You're gonna get controversy when you do.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of different topics. Evil's been kind of in the conversation for the last couple of years in one way or the other. But this is the one that I wanted to kind of start on, because this is the one that just popped everything off.
Okay.
So what do you say we start here? And
I'm down.
Let's dive in.
So let's just do alignment then. I think it's the dumbest thing. I think it's stupid in games. I think it's stupid. Well, let me backtrack that a little bit. I think it's for beginners. And that's not necessarily insulting beginners, but I think it's for beginners. I think if you're a role player who understands role playing, you don't need an alignment. You know what your character is. Like, why do I need to label it with a chaotic evil, chaotic good, chaotic bad, good, neutral, lawful. Like, why? Like, this is what he does in this situation, and it makes sense because of this is how his past experiences are. I do have a lot to say on this, if I may rant for a second. I think
Sure.
that, okay, so this is tricky because I think evil exists 100%, but I don't think evil exists in a vacuum. I think evil comes from somewhere. Like it's something that is created from different situations, and I think that like depending on the villain, depending on the bad guy, depending on whoever you're dealing with, I think it's way more interesting to make that character have a good reason for doing the wrong thing. Even if it's the wrong thing, like the first thing I do when I'm trying to make a villain is I try and think to myself, why is this person doing what this person is doing? You know? Like why? What is their reasoning for this bad, horrible thing that the characters have to stop? And like as terrible as this is, you want to kind of be able to say, I kind of see why he's doing this. You know what I mean? Because that makes it interesting. It's going to make the characters stop and think about it. And I think that, like, I don't know. I think it's tricky, too, because I also think that there is something to just having a creature that is just pure evil for evil's sake, you know? There's something interesting about that too. I mean, some of the best Shakespearean villains are just bad for the sake of bad, and they never explain why they're bad. They're just fucking terrible people. You know, Tybalt from Romeo and Juliet. I cannot remember his name, but the villain in Much Ado About Nothing. They just want terrible shit to happen, and they never really explain why they want terrible shit to happen. And that's not necessarily bad. They're great plays that are revered. It's tricky, but personally, I think that alignment on a whole is for beginners. And I think that evil exists, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes from somewhere. There is a creation of evil. It's just like I don't want to say a forest fire because that's too topical, but like that kind of stuff doesn't come from nowhere. You know what I mean? It takes the spark. And I think that like the spark is where you find the interesting stuff, you know? I don't think that I would poke bees' nests by saying that or choosing language that would say that. But like, the other thing is, I hate the idea. You can't. I'm going through way too many subjects. You can tell I'm out of practice, guys. You can tell I'm way out of practice because I'm just on a rant that 3 different things to talk about. I like the idea of playing goblins. I like the idea of playing orcs. I don't like the idea of a complete and total species or race of creatures that is just evil to be evil. I don't like that. I think that like it's way more interesting to have them have a society that's maybe evil to other societies but isn't evil to them, and here's why they do it this way, you know. And then you could make good goblins and good orcs and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to let you talk now because I've said too many words.
Okay. So, this is interesting because you did say a lot. And
I did say a lot. I should have paused way more times in that.
Well, like, it's interesting because a lot of what you said, like, I do agree with, but there are a couple of points where I have some dissent from you.
Hit me.
And again, a perfectly good opportunity to show how 2 grown adults could have a conversation in a civil manner when they may not align on everything. But okay, so 100% agree with you, like actually perfectly on the alignment for particularly for new time players and even GMs. It's a great tool for somebody who doesn't know and is trying to get their footing. And it's not the only tool. There are others, and like it's a good idea to have like all of them in your tool bag because alignment will work really well for some, and then maybe others you might want to just give them like a movie archetype. I've also found a lot of opportunity there.
It also tends to restrict in some ways. It makes players less likely to have character growth if they see that like that label on the thing and they're using guidelines on what their character should or should not be doing. Like, okay, but like that's gonna hamper the character growth, you know?
Right. Yeah, yeah. And for a first time player, that's probably okay, honestly, because when they're right starting out,
Yeah.
they can't really do with character growth.
No.
It's just not
No.
gonna be they're not the comfort level to play with their character in that
Right.
manner with the game.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you get into it a bit and you're like, huh, maybe chat with your characters or your players about their characters, and get them maybe a little bit more flexible. They're getting good at characters and not necessarily needing the crutch of some of these first time player tools like um, alignment to get them progressing through the plot. So definitely with you on there. When it comes to evil, I do agree with you. Like, evil as a concept,
Mm-hmm.
exists in the world, does almost entirely exist with like a confluence of factors. Like you were saying, like there are some characters in like Shakespeare and even less serious um um fiction like
Yeah.
Star Wars. There's the Emperor, a good example of evil,
Yeah, that's true.
the dark side. But um and when you're trying to create a story, depending on the degree of realism you want and the nature of the story that you and your table are kind of crafting together as we move through all of these plot points and villains and adventures, um if you're looking to instill a great sense of evil, I definitely agree that, you having a evil character who has a point, a Thanos type character, right? Somebody who's like, okay, you're wrong. I mean, I see your logic, but you're
Right.
evil,
Right.
that's totally good, and fine. But I also think that there's a place for just that guy's just evil. And that's where my dissenting like aspect is. And maybe this guy had lots of reasons why he became that evil. And what even sympathetic reasons why he became that evil. Like he was XYZ traumas infused him with a warped perspective on reality.
Right.
Um is one way to go with
Right.
evil characters. Um,
I mean, so let me put this to you. Let me put this very ridiculous question to you. And this is where I'm coming from on the evil doesn't exist in a vacuum. So let's say every idea or concept is a god, okay, or a person or an entity, okay, like a physical entity. So evil is a physical entity, and it represents everything bad and evil. Is that entity bad because it's doing evil? Like theoretically, it is created literally for one and only purpose, and that is the evil that it is. So its evil is the only way it can act. It has to be evil. It is evil. Like that, its bad is good to it because that's its job.
right. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that kind of evil still exists. Like, even if you come down to just the Con Air, like, his bad thoughts, his bad thoughts are good thoughts, and his good thoughts are bad thoughts to him. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if it's as simple as his brain just don't work right, there's still, like, there's that punch, that reason, that, like, it just doesn't exist in that vacuum where he's just evil for the sake of being evil. You know what I mean? Like there, and if he is evil for the sake of being evil, it's because he's broken to start with, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely get that. And that's definitely also another tool. There's the Thanos, and then there's
Right.
there's this guy is 100% just screwed up, but you can at least understand why he's. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't like sympathize with
Right.
his motives, his
Right.
actions, sympathize on a human level of like the things that drove him into being this messed up. That's
Yeah.
another like kind of evil.
Yeah.
And then like the more like, just evil, 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 no like sympathy under that. It is a much, I would argue that that is a possibility, and it is a much harder like evil to create nuance on. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like at a game table, if you're really going for nuance, you're almost like, I mean, what I mean, write a book. Like you have like four other
Yeah.
people at your table that all have their own
Oh
motivations.
yeah.
Nuance is
Oh yeah.
not what you want to be
That's not
doing
what you're
at
there
a
for. I mean, if
yeah.
you get nuance, it's awesome, but it is
Yeah.
something that comes organically. It's not something you can plan. I will say I agree with that. There have been way too many bad guys where I've created them with like these intricate backstories where it's like this is why they are that way, and then not naming names, Philbilly shoots them in the fucking head before I can ever get a monologue out, and then it doesn't matter. Like they just exist as this like evil, like Volker from Astral Drive. There was a lot of reasons Volker was what Volker was. All you guys ever know was Volker abused Philbilly's pet and then he killed him. that was it. And like that's okay. That's okay too. But I think that like I still think I personally played him better because I knew what he was thinking. You know what I mean? And I think that added that realism to it. And I don't know. It makes it feel better anyway, I guess. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Absolutely. Like, I do think having like at least a little bit, at very least a little bit of backstory for your characters, for your villains as a DM, as a GM is fantastic for the reason you just said. It gets you into the head of that character and allows you to project, and sort of on the fly improv what that character would do
Mm-hmm.
because you know so much about him. You know that guy.
Yeah.
Fantastic tool for GMs to use there. And like that's one of the tricky areas with like trying to have like just straight evil, evil, evil as like a nuanced thing. Evil works in Lord of the Rings because the Lord of the Rings is a book and
Yeah.
it has overarching themes of, morality that
Mm-hmm.
are expressed through the storyline and
Yep.
through the characters and the world. And that's not the easiest thing to do at a game table.
It's not.
So it's much easier to go for the evil where the guy is either just broken or the guy has a relatable
Yeah.
like logic, screwed up conclusion, but understandable.
Yeah.
Those two guys are a lot easier to get your evil into the
Yeah.
game.
I have noticed that my players, and I don't know why my players are this way. Maybe it's all players nowadays. They do not want me to monologue ever. They don't want it. They don't want to hear it. The bad guy starts talking. They don't give a fuck. They just want to shoot him in the head, and that always sucks because I start to rev into a monologue, and then it's just like I'm just gonna shoot him while he's talking. All right. That's fine, I guess. Maybe just give me a chance to get to the plot here, but okay, just shoot him. That's fine. But it's what your character would do. I get it. But at the same time, it still gives you that feel to the character. But pure evil is a very difficult character to give that realness to, in my opinion. Like I said, unless you're going with the kind of like evil is evil so that there's good. You know what I mean? And if
Right.
evil is evil so that there's good, then that evil is just doing what evil gonna do. Evil just being evil, and that's kind of cool too. But even that is kind of like honestly, in a lot of ways, that's even more sympathetic than a character who's doing bad things because of bad things happening to them. Because at least to me, because the sympathetic character has these reasons, but they still kind of understand what right and wrong is. Whereas if evil is just evil because he has to be evil, well, I mean, that's almost sadder to me because he can't ever know what right is. He doesn't actually.
Right.
It's like a child. He doesn't know what right and wrong is. He's just evil. Period.
Yeah, how could you be evil if you don't know better, kind of thing.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
and like that kind of story, like I think there's a way to very tiny, itty bitty little sort of ways of really getting that idea
Hmm.
across in a very clever and interesting way, and that would be where evil and good sort of overlap, and there are
Yeah,
gray areas. So
yeah,
an evil villain does like an evil guy does something really good for an evil reason.
yeah,
And now the characters have to figure out what the hell they're going to do with it. Do
yeah.
they undo the good that this evil guy does because there's further evil behind his plots, you know?
Right.
Did the guy destroy, a herd of like dragons that were about to destroy the countryside? Okay, maybe that was a good thing, but he really did it because they were like guarding the gates of hell.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
like what do you do with that? Do you bring the dragons back? Well, then you're going to kill all these villagers.
Right.
But that's the gates of hell. He's going to get into the gates of hell. That's where he wants to go because of reasons, MacGuffins.
Right.
There's some interesting things you could do there.
There is.
Um,
And I do believe in like purely evil creatures and encounters. Like I think that like you could have wandering undead. Like those guys aren't
mm,
serving a purpose. They don't have some colorful backs. They're just wandering undead. They're evil. They're bad. They feast on the flesh of the living. Like that's just what they do. You know, like same with certain monsters out there. Like that are just this is just a nasty monster that's gonna come after you. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally. Yeah, I will say back on the race thing, or the species thing, I definitely whatever we're calling it. And I really I think that I whenever I've done fantasy or sci-fi or anything that is sentient can be good or bad in my games. I don't
okay,
like I don't like anything sentient being hampered by but they're all bad period or they're all good period. I don't because if you're the whole idea of sentience, right, is free will. Like that's what sentience is. Really, when you
right,
get right down to it, it's that you understand what you are. Like that's sentience. And like to have that means that you can understand good and bad. You have morality or an understanding of morality. And at that point, like, I don't want to hamstring anything in. So I will say I'm diehard against, like, all goblins are evil, all orcs are evil, all kobolds are evil. Like, I'm diehard against that kind of logic or thinking. And Lord of the Rings does it. Like all the orcs are evil. Like they say it straight up. Like I think there's some newer stuff that makes it great, but the books are like they bad. They're farmed
right.
from hell and they're bad. And like to me, I'm just like I don't like that. I don't like the idea of that entire thing is bad. And it's not. I'm going to say this right now. It's not from some weird political standpoint. It's not from any sort of like anything more than I don't want any free thinking creatures to be to be locked into one thing. You know, I think
Sure.
that limits everybody's options. Everybody's options.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
it even limits story options because you can't have them go good. You can't have them change sides. You can't have them as NPCs be anything interesting. A goblin, if all goblins are straight evil all the time, period, they're never going to be interesting to me because they're just bad. They're going to show up, they're going to do bad shit, and you're never going to get them to do good shit. You know, and the really interesting goblin stories are the ones where the goblins aren't all bad. They help out, or you get them to turn sides, or to some catastrophic ways because their morality's messed up, but you get them to do things for you. They wouldn't do that if they were just evil,
Right.
And
Okay.
like, it's just more interesting to me on a storytelling level that like you don't hamstring any sort of sentient race into they're just evil for the sake of being evil.
Okay. Okay. So I actually have one challenge to you on that.
Okay, hit me.
Um,
Challenge me, mon frere.
so it's a little bit layered, but to start with, our first game in Astral Drive, the role playing game that we started playing together.
Yes.
You guys, everybody listening to this should definitely go check it out. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
The very first mission that we went on was against the Zix or the
Zix?
Zix and the Hub.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That sort of like accumulation of like basically like a zombie pile of these not like dead zombies but like mutant zombies from space piled together to just assimilate and grow and annihilate the entire galaxy. I think they even came from like possibly the Astral, if I remember right.
Yes.
And it kind of reminded me a little bit of like, this is the second level, how demons are sort of expressed in Warhammer.
Okay.
Because it is like an evil universe with 4 evil gods and all of their demons.
Ugh.
Now Warhammer is primarily a battle map game, but there's an RPG game.
Oh,
I haven't played it, but
dark as
there's
shit.
that dark shit. Yeah, it's a dark game.
That shit
all the way
is dark.
across.
When you get into 40K, it's just like, I don't know what anybody takes from that. There are no good stories there. No good stories. And I'm not talking about no good stories like they're not interesting. I'm saying no good comes from anything that they relay to you in the information. Okay. I see what you're trying to say. So the Zix are very interesting. And I don't know that I ever truly explained this properly throughout the storyline, but so the Zix are, so in that game, there's the astral plane of existence that kind of overwrites our plane of existence. The astral plane of existence has 2 creatures that inhabit that, and they are like 4th dimensional beings. They are like stretched out, energy-wise, stretched out of space and time. They are immortal, whatever. There's the seraphim and the demons, right? The demon, the Zix, are one demon. They're one demon named Zictur who managed to actually use the holes that we were creating, because just for anybody out there who hasn't listened to any of those actual plays, space travel in that game is magical. You travel through the astral plane from one point to another, and that's how you go fast, but it creates these little like weak spots. So a demon actually managed to pass through one of those weak spots, but because it passed from this place where it was like 4th dimensional absolution into our very physical based world, basically the universe tried to write it, and it basically divided him into a million different little parts. And those are the Zix, okay? And then the Zix infect other people by touching them and possessing them, so to speak. So the Zix are not sentient.
Okay.
The Zix are one being, which is this
okay.
demon that has been divided up over billions of little Zix all over the place.
Well, now is the Hub when they kind of cluster together and become sort of a semi-conscious, tactical creature?
It's more of him, Zictur,
Okay.
the original one.
Gotcha.
I don't want to spoil anything because I'd like to finish that game at some point with you guys.
Okay.
And a lot of these mysteries were going to come. But there is a little bit more to that and why they haven't dissipated over so long. But like the first...
Everybody listening out there, this was actually just my attempt to like get Zach to drop some hints about where that game is
some
going.
information, getting that inside.
Yeah, that's what this entire show is about.
The entire show. It's trickery. Player trickery. Player-based trickery. This is why you never game master other game masters, ladies and gentlemen. So they're not necessarily sentient.
Okay.
And I will acquiesce. The demons are pretty fucking evil. At least as far as their presentation through the possession of others and stuff like that, at least in that game. The demons are interesting though. Same with the seraphim, because it's kind of like the way they look at us compared to what they are is not really like the demons are trying to take our shit basically for themselves. And like there's reasons for that as well. which I don't know that we'd ever get to in the game. Whereas the Seraphim are trying to enlighten us. But both of those beings, they exist outside time. So, like, demons and Seraphim are basically immortal. And it's kind of like, what's morality to an immortal at that point? If you've existed in all time and you're going to exist in all time going forward, and you can see that, like the astral plane has no time, concept of time, which is how we can travel through it, like how we can use it to travel super fast at hyperlight speeds. That's the whole idea behind it. So there's no concept of time there. So they see everything in the future, they see everything in the past, and they see all the things that could happen in between. So it kind of comes down to what they decide to do with that information. And the demons are just they're just very negative, whereas the Seraphim are more positive and benevolent.
So yeah, that kind of tracks it. Like, they're not really necessarily a sentient race as
But
much as they are like this other dimensional, higher thinking.
right,
Like,
but to argue the point, the Seraphim and the demons are the same race of things. They're two different factions, not two different species. They're two different factions of one creature that exists outside space-time in the astral plane.
Okay. So there you go. Okay.
So there is no and yes, I will say I'm definitely using some loopholes here, but there is no technically I could argue in a court of law that none of the creatures in Astral Drive are hampered into being evil one way or the other. None of the sentient creatures anyway.
For Exhibit A. Okay, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And honestly, like, I really see your point in regards to, sentient creatures not necessarily having to be all evil as a law and rule. From D&D, we have a great book series where a drow, the L.R. Salvatore.
Oh yeah, the Salvatore ones. I've heard about them.
The drow are all of these an evil race. They worship an evil god. There's all of this evil there. But, the main character is a drow who is trying to better understand good and be good for the sake of good. So it's not necessarily that, this race is evil. It's just that this entire people is evil.
Yep. And
that makes this one character breaking from that kind of be rejected from. And that's an interesting storyline. It's a whole novel series that's beloved by fantasy fans from like, I think the 80s, maybe 90s. So I definitely get that, like, you couldn't have that if it was a hard law that all drow have to be evil.
Exactly.
So there's this one, So
exactly.
I see what you're saying.
And that's really my thought process. It's like, I mean, just think of how much less interesting any of the stuff I told you about in Astral Drive would be if they were just bad, period. Even the vampires. I mean, hell, your character in Astral Drive is basically the evilest race that you could consider. They did all the wrong things, like arguably are still doing the wrong things, but you are playing a sympathetic member of that race. So like,
and that's been a challenge in many ways, but
yes.
I've loved that opportunity.
Exactly.
And
that opportunity
you're saying here.
That opportunity does not exist if I say all vampires are bad, period. It doesn't exist. And like, that's my thing, is like, it's like when you do stuff like that, completely aside of whether you want pure evil or not pure evil, or what you think of, or with whatever these guys were saying about capitalism or whatever your thought process is, I'm looking at it from a functionality standpoint.
Okay.
To the more things that are just evil for the sake of being evil are less options for you as a game master, as a storyteller. It's less options for your players as player characters and as interesting backstories. It's less options. It's less opportunity, Yeah.
Definitely see what you're saying there. And yeah, you know what? You're definitely kind of swaying me more and more in that direction, to be honest with you.
Victory is mine. I only had to reveal half of my astral drive secrets to do it.
The only thing that I mean, like, one of the big things that pushed me, like, in your direction is, like, I mean, really, like, you are right that it does give you a lot of to work with
Right.
if, like, even if the entire race is evil because they
Right.
live from hell,
Right.
that's where they come from. Not making that a hard rule because now you have the one devil that is not evil,
Right.
Is trying to, like, redeem. That's cool. That's an option.
Exactly.
That's an option that you
I
couldn't
think
have if that was a hard rule.
I think one of the problems with these arguments when they come up, same with the species versus race, same with this one, is that the arguments, and I hate this because this goes to some of the things that I've stepped away from in, like, normal politics and living a life sort of conversations, is the conversation turns into, like, instead of turning away from what's best for the game or what it's looking at, you've got one side which is like, I'm going to poke fun at old fogies' beliefs. And then you've got another side that's like, I'm going to believe in this thing regardless of what anybody says because I'm an old fogey. And, like,
Right.
Instead, both sides should just stop and look at it functionally. Nobody's arguing the point rationally, and I hate when that happens. That is when I don't want to be part of it anymore. And like give the arguments rationally step them forth. It's the same with species versus race. Species versus race. Why do I like species better? Because it makes more sense scientifically to me when I look at it than, like, a race. They are not race. They are different species of creatures. When in this point, like, pure evil exists. Pure evil doesn't exist. Look at it from the option standpoint. If pure evil is the thing, then that takes options away from you as a game master, as a storyteller. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. If not, not. But at the end of the day, again, circling all the way back, the beauty of role-playing games, it doesn't matter what anybody on any website, on this podcast, on Blue Sky or X or defunct Twitter or Facebook or whoever says what, you play the game the way you want to play the game. Okay, if you want pure evil in your game, put pure evil in the game. Nobody is gonna have a problem with that. You want to know why? Because you're playing in a basement with your buddies. Like, that's the whole point of role playing. And one of the best parts about role playing is the world is contained with you, like, no outside input. It is you and your friend's fantasy world.
Right. Yeah. That at the time, the ultimate, like, issue is, at the end of the day, this is a game that everybody is playing. Everybody's working together to have fun.
Yeah.
And when you have these very loud voices in one camp or another camp telling you what you cannot or should not do because of XYZ, or it's just detracting from the fun. You can't tell somebody else what they shouldn't do because of XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I mean, it's a game.
Yeah.
Like, let me, like, whatever you want to do, as long as everybody at the table is having fun, that is what you're supposed to be doing. Everybody should be having fun. It's a game. That's why games exist.
Exactly.
So, okay. All right. I think you and I have just settled the evil debate.
We solved it. All 9 of our viewers are gonna be enlightened by us.
Somebody call the internet and let them know. No more.
Call the internet. It's done. It's done.
We got it.
It's done.
We got it.
In a basement in Ohio, and a spare room in Texas. 2 nerds solved it.
Yep, that's you're welcome out there, by the way, everybody listening. I just want to say
you're welcome.
You want to leave a donation, like, it's not asked for. Okay,
buy a shirt.
Buy a shirt. Yeah, that's right. One dice roll at a time. We're saving the world. Okay. Well, I think we ran through this one pretty well, Zach.
I think so.
I think this was a good way to start off. Getting back into it, going back and forth on a topic that's
Yeah.
pretty topical at the moment, but also like something that gives a lot of people something to think about as game masters out there trying to craft their own game and
Agreed.
ways to look at their characters, their NPCs, their players, and what everybody's trying to do.
Yeah.
So before we close out tonight, Zach, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't have any final thoughts, and I don't really have any plugs. I'm going to be doing this show. I'll probably try to get the video game podcast back up and going, but it's going to be kind of light for a while, guys, as I adjust to things. As far as final thoughts on this topic, I think I've said everything that I feel is appropriate for the subject. Everybody be nice to each other, and remember, the key to role-playing games is empathy, so let's show some to each other. Period.
Yeah, very, very well said. Yeah, and as always, this is Wizard Respite Sanctorum. You can watch this on YouTube. You can also watch it at thewizardsrespite.com. I have been a little slow on getting a few things out the last month because of life. But like Zach said, we're trying to get back into things. We're definitely going to be doing more of these.
Yeah.
Sort of, almost definitely, and I'm going to be doing a lot more on the website also. More shirts will be coming, more articles will be coming, and final thoughts on this topic is, guys, remember, it's a game. Let's all have fun. That's why we're here. That's why.
And why is it always the D&D people? Have you noticed that? Every time we're having this, it's the D&D people.
That's
what
another,
is with you D&D people? You cut it out, all right? You play nice, you don't play at all. What the hell?
I think you just might have hinted at the next episode's topic.
Why is
it always the D&D people?
It's always the D&D people. Jeez.
You're not getting this from the Palladium crowd.
No, all four of them. You're not getting
Yeah, tunnels and trolls. Come on.
You don't see the 7 people playing Savage Worlds coming out of the woodwork.
That's right.
Jeez.
Nah.
Jeez.
Yeah. All right, everybody out there. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please tune in again in 2 weeks, and until next time, keep rolling them dice.